Okay, but so your hair looks great, by the way.
Well, I haven't run out of coconut butter, but if anyone who works for a coconut butter manufacturing company wants to sponsor my podcast, I'm all ears, as you can see, with my microphone head.
Why? What does coconut butter do to your hair?
It just gets rid of this frizz and it gives it a little bit more of a greasy Latino vibe, you know.
Oh,
just
so
yeah.
it
just calms it down a little bit, you know.
Oh, I've heard of coconut butter on your skin, but not your hair.
You can do so much. You can cook with it. You can put it on your skin. You can put it on your hair. Lube, Katie. It's a great lubricant.
I was waiting for you to say lube. I was like, I wonder if you'll say that. I'm not putting
leave the best to last.
I'm not putting coconut oil in my vag. My vag is fine anyway, but maybe your arse. Maybe, yeah, anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Sorry.
I'm talking about the arse. We've talked about that before. I'm not talking about your vag. I'm talking about my arse.
So you have a tub everywhere.
A tub in every corner of the house.
Okay, so after 4 months of quarantine, you've ran out of...
Yes.
So there's no shop selling coconut butter?
No, I just haven't. What happened? It was just in my methodology or my routine. I just didn't work it in. There is coconut butter. I had a shower last night after I had a very late run. I didn't want to be putting coconut butter in there before bed, be on the pillowcase, and then... Anyway, no one needs to hear this. I've got coconut butter. And it will go in. But I think just the more I throw it up, the more the possibilities are of the sponsorship. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, well, I think it looks great. But it's nice seeing
Thanks.
everybody, all the guys' hair over quarantine because you've all gone a bit wild. I didn't realise that it was such a... Because I always thought you guys had it easy. You just get... But yeah, now I know.
I think when you go to the barber, like I'm not really... I haven't been for the last couple of years a barber guy. But I think the general... It's fair to say... The average Irish man likes his barber every month, short back and sides, trim on top and blah, blah. And my hair's never been like that, you know, so it's just... so I've had it longer the last few years and I've had to go to a proper hairdresser for that. Because barbers do not... If your hair is any... if you don't want to show it back and sides or... What you mean you want to trim? What the fuck? You know, thin out the back? What are you talking about? So yeah, I think, but guys do have it easy because once you are going every 4 weeks, it's fine. But then after that,
You're fucked.
if you don't do that, the whole barbershop thing every 4 weeks, it can get messy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've always cut my own hair, so I was fine.
Really?
Yeah.
You are such, I was going to say hippie, but then I just forgot you went to art college, so yes.
Yeah, so
I get your vibe.
I was an art teacher for a while.
Right, yes, nice.
Until the guys kept drawing penises and being like...
Really?
Yeah, they'd be like, Miss, look at my dolphin, and then they'd show me a picture of a penis. It went on for a month, or for the whole... I was only substitute teaching, but I was like, I can't deal with this.
That's always the one that you want to pick on is the substitute teacher,
I know,
isn't it?
and they committed to the bit as well. I was like, every time, Miss, look at my dolphin, and it was a different penis.
Dolphin. Why was it dolphin, I wonder?
I have no idea. They're just very original in Leaslip.
But was there any good ones? Because do you remember that clip in Superbad where Jonah Hill's character, like, he drew amazing penises and yeah.
I
Did you
don't
get any good
remember.
ones?
It didn't stick in my
No.
mind. No. Traumatized.
That would have ruined it for them though if you actually went around and you looked at the dolphin. You went, oh, that's very good. You could work on the flippers there a bit more, but that was a good attempt. Well done.
I stick it up on the wall and be like, look at it, everybody, look at John's dolphin. Isn't it great?
Yeah, that's a good one. Look at hold it up in front of everybody. Look at John's dolphin.
Yeah, we'll give it a B because it's a bit small.
Boo,
That'd
yeah.
be inappropriate. I'd get fired now, but
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not why I stopped. Oh wait, okay. So I'll tell you about the podcast. So basically, it's like dating stories, but like an anti-online dating podcast. So like anything like relationship or dates that you've had in real life, success or failure. So
yes. I've done my research, Katie. I know.
Oh, good.
I've been listening to you.
No, you haven't.
I have.
Oh, yeah.
I did. I listened to the last couple of ones at the beginning. I was like, okay, I get it. And then, I thought about it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I always go into podcasts nearly blind, you know. Like,
yeah, I get that as well, and sometimes it makes for a great podcast, and a lot of the times it makes for a great podcast, but then sometimes it can be a bit hit and miss, you know.
No, I think it's great when someone does listen before, because then you're like, oh, that's great. But I always think that before, like when there was The Real World and people would ask me to go do a podcast, and I'd be like maybe 20 minutes on the train, I'd be like, fuck, I should have listened to what this is about. But I'd usually like Google then and see like what the description is.
Yeah.
So any failure, success, or I know you spoke about your girlfriend on our podcast. That was a great story.
Yeah, how we met and all that. Yeah, I was thinking about like how, because I literally don't think, I'm sure it's different for all the kids now today. I don't think I know I've had a couple of, I don't think I've had a date off an app.
Yeah, that's great.
So different generation maybe, but I mean I'm 34, so I'm not that old. And they were, especially when I lived in London, there was a lot of people on Tinder and Bumble and stuff. But I was never very good at it. I think you have to be good at these apps as well. You have to have the chat on the texting, and I just was never great at that.
No. And then you could be talking to multiple people, so you have to remember who you said what to, because when it's text, it's not a real connection, so you can kind of forget.
Yes, I agree.
I got caught out a few times with that.
Oh, did you see? You're the type now that would have broke my heart. You see, because like I've realized this recently in therapy in the last few weeks, that I'm very sensitive, and probably didn't realize that about myself. And I said to my girlfriend, I was like, do you think I'm sensitive? She's like, oh yeah, you're sensitive. So I know 34 years of my life not really realizing that I'm a very sensitive person. But that kind of shit, Katie, would have broken my heart now. If I was texting you on Tinder and I knew that you were off texting another fella who might have a better afro than I have, I would have been like, fuck her. And I would have held it against you for at least a year.
Oh no!
And I wouldn't have even met you.
Yeah, you'd be like that fucker online. But it is easy, because you'd be texting people and then you'd be like, oh, or you'd be like, oh, so you said your brother is an artist, and they'd be like, no, I never said that, and you're like, fuck, that's the other guy. Fuck, never mind.
Awkward. So, but I suppose like I've found, and I've definitely got hurt by that a lot. But there's nothing wrong with it. But the women definitely keep the options open. They will have a few. They'll be joking. And I'm not even just talking about apps. There's a few. I had a girl, actually. I've just remembered this from saying this now. And I can't say her name, but she's the only person that will know, if she ever listens to this, who it is. Because she's quite a well-known, a very well-known actress now, right? And this is a while ago now. But I had her over at my house, and a colleague... And she had just broken up with a boyfriend. I was thinking, she literally came to hang out. We had a glass of wine or whatever, hanging out. And I was like, oh, it was that awkward, butterflies. Do I kiss her? Do I not kiss her? Ah! All that kind of shit going on. And next thing, up on her phone, the name of another fella comes up that I knew. And I was like, what's he calling for? Oh, nothing. On the phone, I can hear there's a bit of an argument because she said where she was. Yeah. And then she was like, I have to go. And then subsequently found out literally 2 days later through him, he sent me a message to say, oh, just so you know, we were keeping it on the DL, but me and such are going out. And I was like, really? Oh, okay, that's cool. I got on to her and I was like, why did you say that you're going out with the guy? She goes, I'm not going out with anybody.
Yeah, this is the thing. You nearly have to have very clear, written down what you are. What's the word? Like a contract. You need a written contract nowadays.
Yeah. Like, are we in the chatting up phase? Because do you mind committing to me for the chatting up phase? I think that's what I needed, I need a bit of commitment for the chatting up part.
Because I used to be like that. Like, if I met someone, I stick with them like straight away pretty much. But now I'm like, oh God, no one else is doing that in New York. So I'm like,
that's the thing. You get burnt, don't you? It's like you get burnt. But I can see it from the... Yeah, so what was the most you would have had? Like, are you single now?
I'm seeing someone, but we haven't had the contract, so who fucking knows what we are.
So have you committed to the seeing at least? Or are you still chatting to other people? Or can you say that on the podcast?
No, he doesn't listen. Or so that's what he tells me. But no, I only talk to him. Like, there's, the odd person who would DM me or whatever, and I'll talk to them because it's like harmless. Or like, there's a couple of guys who I feel like I ended up being friends with because of online. Like they follow me on Instagram and they hold on. I'm gonna close my roommate's door because construction work just happened. 1 second.
I thought, oh, is that what it is? I'll keep the listeners occupied here. Katie's taking off her earphones, and oh, by the way, follow me.
Weird.
Oh yeah.
In New York, they'll just start construction at any stage. But so. Yeah, there'll be like, there's this guy who will like send me TikTok videos sometimes. Like we've never met up or whatever, but I'm just like, oh, like to me that's no harm. But but yeah, I'm not seeing anyone else at the moment, even though we haven't had the talk. But also there's like a pandemic, so
when you're seeing each other and there's a pandemic, like, are you actually kissing or what's going on?
Yeah, we are now, but for the first 2.5 months we weren't.
Shifting.
Yeah, we're shifting now. We're having sex. We're doing the whole shebang.
Oh, everything.
Yeah,
right, brilliant.
So it's been like nearly 4 months, I guess, because we started talking to each other at the start of the pandemic. So,
right, that's a bit more serious than seeing each other. Sure, that's very like, like you haven't had the talk, but you probably should have.
Yeah, we'll just see. I'll just go with.
See, what you're doing there is keeping your fucking options open. That's.
Well, I'm always just like at this point because I've been like dating guys for a few months over here, and then you'd find out months later, oh, you weren't like monogamous or you weren't together. So I'm at the point now I just leave it up to them.
That is what you said on the last podcast, I think, was that like 3 or 4 months New York time is like 4 years, and 3 or 4 months is a long time in New York time in relationships, apparently, is it?
Well, I think it depends. So I've had it both ways, where either people commit to you really, really quickly. I've had a couple of guys like want to be my boyfriend like 2 weeks in because they know there's so many options, so they just like lock you down, and then it just goes too fast and you're like out of it after 3 months because you've done like the whole shebang.
We've done everything. Coconut butter, the whole lot.
Yeah.
Done.
Oh, or you have the opposite where you are seeing someone, it feels like you've gone through that whole thing but you didn't actually have the talk, and they also have like a girlfriend that they didn't tell you about, or like, you know what I mean, like, and it's because it was never you never,
it was never discussed.
Yeah, and you're like, oh fuck. So but yeah, I do think things can go too fast here for sure sometimes. But this is nice and slow, so
nice. I definitely look, because I'm with my girlfriend now. Jesus, what year is it? 4 years, longest relationship ever. Yeah. And but I do miss, not to say that's no reflection on my relationship at all, but I do miss the dating thing, like what you're going through now, or the I didn't miss it at the time because it was awful. And the last time I was in the dating scene was in London, so in a similar way was. I don't know if you found this, but I found it really hard in London dating because of everybody had so many options. Yeah. Everybody had so many things going on. And there was also the element in London of like, definitely, especially with where I worked, which was Shoreditch, kind of like really cool. It was like, what have you got, you know? Where's your career going, you know? What have you, you know? What am I going to get out of this fella, you know? Yeah. Oh, he's funny. Doesn't really have a lot of money. So it didn't. I mean, girls I found fairly straight up about that kind of shit. You know what I mean? It's like, you ain't got money, good luck. So that was definitely a hard part of it. But I worked in the services industry. So I worked as a barista and I worked in restaurants. I was a waiter, and I loved the chat up in that. That was great. Yeah. That's how I met people. That's how I met girls.
I do like that as well. Like I bartend as well, and you like flirting and stuff. So yeah. Woo! I love an elf flirt. I love an elf flirt that won't go anywhere.
Oh, it's like my manager even used to like when they'd come in, or like he would just sit them up at the bar on purpose. Do you know what I mean, in the restaurant, because he's like, there's one for Steve-O, you know. But I love that whole flirting kind of you might get a number, you may or may not get a number, and I'll never forget one girl sat down at the far end of the room. She was with a regular customer of ours, and the manager said to me, Steve-O, go take payment off that table. I was like, fuck off, it's not my section. But why is he doing this? He's up to something, you see. Yeah. And he swears to this day that he did not set this up at all. But I went over to the girl, and as I was paying, the regular customer was like, hey, how are you? You know, kind of blah, blah. And the other girl says to me, excuse me, can I ask you a personal question? I was like, yeah. She goes, are you seeing anybody? And I was like, I kind of had seen somebody a couple of days before. I wasn't quite sure. Are you heterosexual? I was like, yeah. And she was like, she starts writing down her numbers. Goes, here's my number. I think you're really hot. You'd be a fool not to call me.
That is a level of confidence I want. Oh my God.
So confident.
You'd be a fool not. Did you call her?
I did. We went for lunch and we had sex, and that was it. We never saw her again. You
went for lunch and had sex. Did you bring your coconut butter?
No, there was no coconut butter in them days, but there was. But it was. That was a lot of my dating. Was like it wouldn't be in bars. There wouldn't be alcohol involved. There was a lot of daytime stuff. I'd meet for a coffee and have sex, and you may or may not see each other again. So I loved that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. That's great that it was even daytime, because I think most people would say that. Well, again, I always do these random generalizations and I haven't a clue what I'm talking about. But I would think most people would probably meet people at a bar and get drunk and sort of not even really remember the sex sometimes.
That's definitely something that's in my head as well. And if that's your scene and you're doing you love going out and socialising and having a few beers and all that shit, then yeah. And I can see loads of people hooking up that way as well. But I kind of stopped doing that very young when I was like late teens, early 20s, and I would just always meet people. I was always daytime, meeting people in the daytime, and because I always felt I could flirt better. I also enjoy more the one-on-one.
Yeah.
If we're in a big room of people and everyone's like dancing around and shouting, I don't feel I can work the magic. Do you know what I mean, Kate?
No, I do know what you mean. I'm the same. I would prefer one-on-one. Like I love when we go to like a bar that's just about to shut down. Like as in it's like losing business.
Nice.
And you're the only two in there. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, and you you don't have to go to work. You don't have to do anything that evening, and you just get lost for hours and hours and hours. Yes, stuff like that, and the excitement of the first date and all that stuff is great. You know the sexual tension. Will I kiss her? Will I not kiss her? Blah blah, all that stuff. And but I was also thinking I went through a really weird phase because I grew up in a really religious family, right? Like strict born again Christians and all that. So I went through a phase in my early 20s where I was like, I need to get on the straight and narrow now, and I should only be going out with Christian girls, right? So I started going to church again, right? And I was fucking. I ended up with a couple of girls. Katie, it was mental.
What do you mean? Like so you went to church and hooked up with girls afterwards?
I didn't hook up with them, but like you'd end up kind of through the church. There's these circles of young adults groups and all that kind of stuff where they'd hang out and do wholesome stuff and nobody drinks or gets drunk or blah, 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 blah. And you might like a girl and you go on a couple of dates. But the hilarious thing was that the horniest girls in the world, but then they won't do anything, kind of, they do. And so literally before I'd even, like, I'll never forget, there's one girl, I hope she doesn't listen to it. She lives around here now. I'll never forget her literally hopping on me in a car. The worst kisser ever, like licking the face off. Awful. And that's the downside of it, is that if you're not going to have sex before marriage and you're a woman in your 20s, you have no clue how to do anything.
Yeah.
Kiss, nothing, and you're extremely sexually frustrated. So she would be like jumping on top of me, but then like the next day calling me, we can't see each other anymore, blah, blah, blah. Like it's everything is way too much,
The stress for her as well, because Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you need to be like, I don't know if you were similar enough, but I remember literally teaching one of these Christian girls how to masturbate. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Oh, masturbate on herself or masturbate on you?
Well, just generally, I was introducing her to her clitoris, basically.
Oh,
I mean,
okay, yeah. No, well, no one ever told me about that until my mid-20s, so...
Yeah, she was around the same age as well.
Yeah.
But then the problem is, then you even touch down there and she's like, oh my God. Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my, like it's the most intense.
I know. That's so true.
And I'm like, you can do it yourself. I can leave, it's fine. God didn't mean to hide it from you.
and he didn't even really hide it that well, So
no, he didn't.
It is awful.
That's great.
What?
That's crazy that you had no idea.
Yeah, I know. I kind of I guess I knew a little bit, but I just didn't really know that you could masturbate. I didn't really know that people did that. Like I knew about lick outs because I knew like a boyfriend had done it when I was like 18. A boyfriend had done it when I was 15, but he was like licking my hole. So that was never,
brilliant.
But yeah, so yeah, I can't remember when I first started. Like, also it was just so sensitive when I was masturbating that I would like.
Right.
It took me like a couple of years to really get the hang of it.
Right, so it was overly sensitive. So
and it was also just like not knowing that that's just about to orgasm, like losing that control or whatever, and then having to commit to it. So, but now I'm like, it's like my favorite pastime.
Do you think it's a common thing in women? Because I remember being with a girl who said she'd never orgasmed before, and is it that final bit that they don't know how to let go? You know?
I think so, yeah, 100%. And then as well, because for a lot of women, they think, "Oh shit, I'm about to pee," or they just can't relax or go through it. Yeah, 100%. And they get in their head, they're like, "What's this?" and then they lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. But so that was the crack with the Christian girls anyway.
That's great. So you were just getting hot and heavy, but nothing,
but nothing happened. And then I did see one of them for a couple of months, and I kind of do feel bad because it didn't last for. But again, it's because they, that was with me was the first time she had sex in her early 20s, and then the relationship didn't last long at all. But again, it was just too much, because I think it was in that world. It's a weird thing because they know that I have been having sex.
Yeah. So
I do know what I'm doing, and that's like an extra turn on or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they just can't control themselves, and I feel bad because it's like they are being deprived of something. It's not right. It's not good for your head.
It's not good. Once I learned to orgasm, I became like 100% more of a chill person.
Yeah.
I was always overthinking before, and then I was like, oh no, I just was frustrated.
Geez, I'm very now you're just like, you get angry, you have a wank, and that's it, you feel better.
I like you know that book, it says The Art to Not Giving a Fuck. I'm like, people just have to touch themselves more, and then you won't give a fuck.
I've said it in my show last year, there'd be a lot less, like Hitler probably wouldn't have existed if they did masturbation classes in school. Do you know what I mean? He'd been so chilled out. He was just like, if his mommy just said, "Hitler, you're a bit worked up there, go upstairs and have a wank and then tell us how you feel about Jews after that,"
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's one of my friends, and she does be wound up a lot, and I was like, I just said to her, I was like, you should probably masturbate more, and she was like, no, I can't do that. And I was like, I knew it. That's why she's wound up.
So she doesn't do it?
She doesn't do it now.
Wow.
That's why she's wound up. So.
Is she in the US or in Ireland?
US.
Wow. Crazy.
I know, but she's not. She's an immigrant as well. So, but we'll leave it at that. But
you should be going, so am I. Let's all do it. We're all immigrants. Let's masturbate.
Yeah, together, masturbation party. Everybody has their own tent.
Oh, wow.
I was going to ask you something there and it slipped my mind. Wait, so with the Christian girl that you slept with, you waited a few months before you did stuff?
Wasn't that long. It was like the whole beginning to end of the relationship was like 2 months, I think, or maybe 3. So like we had slept together fairly early on, but by that stage we had done literally everything, and it was actually one of those when I think what religions kind of make sex a really oppressive thing, and you feel a lot of guilt for it, and I still think only like now I'm fully letting go and never feel guilty about anything sexual at all, or anything you want to do. It should all be fine. But that relationship for those couple of months where we had done everything, and she seemed to, I don't even think she'd had a boyfriend before, but she was just a very sensual person. Everything was, I'll never forget, she gave me a full body massage once, and it was like the most amazing thing ever. But she wanted to do that. Yeah. It wasn't like, I want a massage. That was her way of showing affection and touching every part of your body, and then you have sex after. And, super sensual person. But in that kind of relationship, it's like it's a really freeing, walking around the gaff and the nip kind of everything, just really freeing thing. But she was definitely, but I think she was, we were totally not, sexually it was great, but personality wise we were complete opposites. And I remember saying to her about one of her group of friends, they're all nerdy scientists basically, I said about this other guy, have you never hooked up with him? And she's like, no, that'd be weird. No, there's no way, me and him. So they're married now and they have a kid.
Oh my God. Well, maybe when it's like, what's that thing? Die protest too much.
Yes, yeah. She just it was just like a match for me on paper. Like that's a match made in heaven, and we were so opposite. But I think it was because I was her first. It was a huge deal for her that it didn't work out between me and her. But like I didn't have any guilt or any.
It's mad that you were her first, and it was so soon that you guys had sex, but I guess she'd been doing stuff with other people.
Must have been, and like to my knowledge as well, she wouldn't have been like, she wasn't a dating kind of. She was a serious academic, scientist, mad into academia, like crazy. That was her life, and like, yeah, she was a super brainy person. So I think it was her first boyfriend, or like even so. I didn't even know if she had gone on dates or stuff before. But she was like in 150. She had money as well. So I remember she'd gone on a trip to New York and came back and just bought me like, I was like, I had an Armani watch and Calvin Klein gear and like crazy.
This is all in 2
stuff.
months. This is amazing.
Yeah. I'd say max 3 months.
Jesus.
But it was like full on. Her granddad wore an Armani watch, so I was going to wear an Armani watch. Kind of, it was like, woo,
wow, oh yeah,
like marriage. So it was crazy, but there was definitely, she's obviously somebody who expresses herself sexually, physically, and it was amazing. And it's kind of a shame that's been, she has it now obviously with her husband, but that was oppressed for so long that she could have been having way more fun before that,
Yeah. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm sorry to be, but born again Christian, does that mean that you were just looking for Christian girls, or so Catholic wouldn't be included in that?
Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. Like that was pure guilt that I was doing that. That was all that, because I was a bit of a wild child. So my dad was a preacher, but I kind of rebelled against that very young. In my late teens and early 20s, I was like mad on drugs and all that, and I ended up in psychiatric for a while and stuff. But got out the other side of that. But then because I was off drinking and everything, I was sober for years. But so I think it was like as part of that process, I was like, and I need to go back to the church and, that was kind of programmed into me that as part of being a better person, I should go out with a Christian girl or whatever, which is obviously total bullshit. And, but so, yeah, it was just back to the churches that I knew, the born again Christian evangelical churches and all that kind of stuff. But I remember going on the first date with my girlfriend now, and she was saying that she was Catholic, and she was like, I was like, oh, right, are you practicing? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh. I was like, so I had to ask, it was the first date. I was like, so like, no sex before marriage? And she was like, I'm not a fucking nun. I was like, oh, okay, right, that's cool.
You're like traumatized. You're like, oh, Jesus. Wait, but so before I ask you about your girlfriend now, but so you went to the Christian, back to like the Christian churches to be good.
Churches,
and then you're just turning all these women.
Well, I
they were like, get this fucker out of here.
It sounds like that, all right. Well, that girl that I was telling you about there that I went out with, that actually wasn't through church at all.
Oh.
Her, I didn't meet her through church at all. Her mum and my mum were good friends, and my mum invited them all over for dinner. And literally at the dinner, I asked her for her number in front of her mum and my mum.
That's amazing. I love that. That would have been a great
that was
meet cute cheeky story if you had ended up
if
together.
It worked out. Yeah. And then the other two girls were just dates, so there was no sex or nothing, but a bit of fooling around with one of them. But how did I meet them? It was just through the same circle of friends.
Yeah.
I was working in a charity at the time that was well connected to these Christian circles, and kind of just met them at social stuff. And yeah, it was like when I look back at it now, they were weird. They weren't parties. It was just like everybody hanging around on Sundays listening to U2 and eating hummus and playing tennis. And they're all really rich. And then I was the bad boy to some of them, I think, because, I'd had sex.
You come in like with your fro and your leather jacket, and they're all like, hide your daughters.
Tracksuits. I was a madman for the tracksuits at the time, yeah.
The Adidas tracksuits.
That's an Adidas tracksuit, and I was in a band at the time as well, so I was a real badass.
Christian rock band.
No, I wasn't Christian. Oh yeah, strange. Now that I look back at it, yeah, it's fucking strange times. Too much to be thinking about with all that shit.
But that's a great meet in real life story, Chris. So there's one for if there's any religious people listening. If you don't want to have sex but you want to meet someone, go to church.
But that's how my mom and dad met. Like like it is a crazy thing that the whole culture is no sex before marriage, but the result is like crazy horny adults that are trying to be pretend that they're praying all the time and reading the Bible. It's fucked up. Like my mom and dad both became Christians, and they met because my mom's from Argentina and my dad's Irish, and they met because they were both on the same ship that traveled the world spreading the good news.
The good news.
And yeah, exactly.
Well, the good news for some and bad is that you can't have sex.
Yeah. But they just met on the ship and then asked each other, like, they got engaged and all that stuff. But yeah, I can't imagine living on a ship and not having sex. My mom lived on it for 3 years.
Yeah, no, and just imagine not having. Look, this is an obvious thing to say, but like, you know, you've committed to marriage then, and you'd just be like, what if the sex was shite? I know you could work. Yeah. You could work on it, I guess, but like sexual chemistry, I want to have sex before I. Yeah, no. I need to know.
No, oh yeah, you kind of want to know what you're doing a little bit, but I think because I've only had like two, like my only other serious relationship was in my late teens. I went out with a girl for a year and a half. And in those days, there was no Tinder. And I was actually trying to think. I was like, I don't know how I actually met her. It was probably just playing football down the green, blah, blah, blah. So that was before. And I remember having a Nokia. That's all. Yeah. So there was loads of texting on the Nokia. And that was meeting in real life. And then I did go for a girl briefly in my mid-20s, and we just met through the same acting circles. And again, that just all happened through hanging out daytime, no alcohol involved, nothing. I just kind of, do you want to meet for coffee, blah blah, and worked the long game there, and then we started going out, you know.
Yeah, so. And I think a lot of people as well, the problem with the apps is it's so easy just to do it that in real life it's like making people less comfortable asking people out in real life, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. It makes it much more of a bigger deal to ask somebody out.
Yeah.
And like, did you meet the guy that you're with now on an app?
Yeah. So completely the opposite of what this podcast was meant to be about. But it was a pandemic. But like
But what?
What?
But did you want to? Do you want to meet somebody in real life because you think that's better, or you're not bothered either way, or?
I had originally, yeah, because I just felt like anytime I went out on the apps, I didn't fancy them because it was just like, and they were just different than whatever perception I had.
Than the photo.
Yes, than the photos or their messages.
Yes.
The only thing that's better with the pandemic is that there was a lot of FaceTiming, so I kind of knew with this guy,
right.
I had his vibe. So I definitely think going forward for apps, that will make it a lot easier for people if they FaceTime before, just because you're kind of like, oh, I can see what they really look like in their energy.
Yes.
But yeah, I like meeting people, but I also have no problem going up and flirting to someone and talking to them, and I like that. But yeah, I do think that the only thing is I work nights obviously with shows, and then work at a bar during the day, so I'm meeting a lot of like heavy drinkers. So that's one thing that's good about the app, is it broadens your
heavy drinkers and comedians.
I know, nightmares. But
have you ever gone out with another comedian?
Yeah, I was seeing one right before the pandemic, but he didn't tell me about his open, and I say that for the listeners, I have like quotation marks, girlfriend. So you know, you'd think with a comedian you work together, so you think like, I'm surprised he didn't ever think that was going to bite him in the arse, but sure, you know, that was it. When I found out, I was like, I don't want to hook up anymore. It was only brief. It was only a month, so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't, especially with, you know, I definitely had no interest. When I started doing comedy, I did make a conscious effort. Not that it was that much of an effort, but like made a decision before I went into it. Like, I'm not hooking up with any comedians.
No, yeah, I was the same, just because I used to work in a bar in Ireland and everybody hooked up with everybody, and then like that, I was in a relationship the whole time, so I never was really involved in it, and they're all great people, but it caused a bit of drama sometimes. So I was like, I don't want that with comedy. But that's like, this guy that I was hooking up with, that was like 5 years later. So I was just like, at that stage, I was just like, who cares now? And he also is like, he's very like dedicated to comedy. He never like goes, he's not like, so I was like, oh, this will be great. No, but I would still be friendly if I saw him, and he would be friendly to me too. He's just obviously a bit of a sleazeball, you know?
Yeah.
So
And there's also like there's not that much room for, I don't know, there's a lot of couples, creative couples, that do seem to make it work. But I was in acting when I started out in showbiz, inverted commas. But I started out in acting, and my girlfriend was an actor and a fashion model at the time as well. And 90% of the time was good. It was great. Like our one-on-one relationship was excellent, and it was great. It was great fun, and it was silly. And we did have a safe word. If we were talking about work stuff too much, we would just say that to kind of go, we're not talking about that anymore because it's work. But I do remember on a couple of occasions, if there was any social or networking things, that there was just clashing of two egos there, that it's not going to work for the relationship long term, you know?
No, so, yeah, I know what you mean.
So there's two people trying to make it, essentially, or make careers anyway out of being comedians, and that's a really hard thing to have in a relationship, I think. I
agree. And then also as well, like the one thing I noticed now, I was only seeing this guy for like 4 weeks, but we would text and talk every day, and I didn't know there was things that you could worry about, but he would be telling me his worries and fears, and all of a sudden I'd be like, oh shit, should he be just like, oh, such and such has so many followers on Instagram, and I'd be like,
career-wise, okay.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't even have thought of that. So he had so many things that he was bitter about or worried about, and I was just like, this is a lot, like I can't. Yeah, so that's another thing.
That's the other side of it. Yeah, you don't want to be dealing with that stuff as well.
Yeah, and because then their worries become yours, or it can be competitive as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if your relationship can't be, your connection with each other can't be your work.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna because we're both comedians. That's why we like each other. Is that enough? No, you gotta have way more than that, you know.
Yeah.
And I am grateful with my girlfriend now that you know, we have a child together, and we are similar in a lot of ways, but very opposite in most ways, and that's great.
And she's not a creative person, or is she?
She's never worked creatively, but she is actually very creative. I mean, even little things like when she draws, I had no idea that she's amazing. It's like she can actually, you know, do the bowl of fruit and all that shit. Like she can do that. Yeah. But she never. She's one of those. She said it about herself a few times, which is a bit negative. She's like, I'm not a talented person. I was like, Jesus, that's not fucking everybody's. And she's like, no, I'm not depressed about it. I don't feel down about it. It's like, I'm not a person that's really good at, you know, you're good at being funny and someone else is good at that or whatever. But she just sees herself as a whole rounded person. She's an amazing mother. But she is very creative in her own way. She just never wanted to make a career out of it, you know.
Yeah.
She used to do interior design, and when it comes to drawing, and my daughter is she's very much a dancer, a painter. She expresses herself artistically a lot. She performs a lot. She loves making people laugh and stuff like that. She's only 2, but that's definitely not just from me, you know. She's definitely they bond creatively a lot. They paint together a lot. Like, see that on the wall there?
Yeah.
That's my 2-year-old did that.
I was looking at that earlier. I love it.
Yeah. Oh. So they spend a lot of time together creatively, and I think what will happen when my daughter grows up and we see whatever she does with her life, and she grows, like, a lot of it will be down to her mother being able to coach her creatively, because I am very creative, and it's like it drives me up the walls, but I'm no good at teaching anybody how to guide them, or even how to, like, I'm great at messing with my daughter and being an idiot, but she spends hours painting something, or, you know, letting her express herself that way.
That's a huge level of patience as well that a lot of people don't have. Yeah. And my girlfriend absolutely loves it, and she loves spending that time with her, and it's great. Like, I don't have the patience the way that she does, so it is great. But again, that's part of the opposites attract thing, you know. She values family first in life, and she values the home. No interest in money whatsoever. Like, I'd be looking at her or her sister, like her sister like hooks up with another rich guy or whatever like that. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, do you ever feel like you could have got a rich Portuguese guy as well? She's like, I don't give a shit about that stuff. So again, whereas I'll be worrying about, I wouldn't mind a nice car or a nice house or whatever. That's so funny. The guy that I'm seeing, he was like, oh, my car is being sent over. And I was like, oh my God, that's so great. You're so lucky you have a car. And he said that he had gone on a date with someone, and she was like, one of the first questions was like, do you have a car, and what type of car it is? And he was like very materialistic, where I was like, wow, a car, you're rich.
Yes. Yeah. And so is he in the creative field as well?
Yeah, he's an architect. And he's an artist as well. He did like an art piece on my stand-up, like, which is mental.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's better than fucking you.
Nah, I prefer fucking, but, but it was really.
That's a lovely piece of work you've done here. Now get in here.
Yeah,
come on.
No, it was nice. It's just like, it was one of those things during the pandemic when we couldn't see each other. He had to do. He's part of an art collective. Actually, he was in London for a while. So an art collective, I think, is based out there, but they had to do it on other people's processes, so they're like artistic ways. So he was like, could I do it based on your stand-up, and I'll just ask you a bunch of questions on being a stand-up. But I felt like a right idiot, because he was like, and how do you think of a joke? And I was like, I don't know, just something comes to me in the shower and I hope that's funny. Like, I'm not like set up a punch. I'm just like said something in conversation and then wrote it down. And sometimes I'll be saying things on stage and I'm really like, I don't know why they're laughing. I have no idea why this is funny.
Right, okay, yeah. Like, of course that happens all the time,
Yeah, I'm not like a scientist with it, whereas like, I remember there was a comedian back home, I can't remember his name, Ross Brown, yes. And he was telling me like an idea or how he writes jokes, and he gets like 2 words and he finds all the things that are in common, and then what's the weird thing, and then puts them together. And I was like, yeah.
I'm falling asleep already.
No, I was like, that's great. But I was like, wow, I'm definitely not a science comedian.
No, me too. And I have learned, I have read a lot of those books and found lots of those exercises and stuff. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to sit down and write between 9 to 5, blah, blah. And literally day 2, I'll be the most depressed fucker ever. I was like, that's just not how I work.
I'm the same. I tried to do it, and I've just found that I found over the years that the way I work is by actually being out with people and just like having the chats, and then not even like, not trying to be funny, but if something comes up, I'll be like, oh, that's a story I've never thought about trying, so I'll just make a quick note. But I have to be out doing things, living your life. Thank God.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely, I agree. Does your artistic work from the past in any way inform how you create stand-up?
I wonder, I guess it does, because I used to edit a lot for video art, and I feel like that process works when I'm editing my stories or jokes. Like I think so. I don't know, actually. That's weird. I'll have to think about that later and come back to you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, well, I guess this is a really hard question. I used to make like installation art and like rooms and stuff, but it was all about people's experience. So I guess that's kind of similar.
Well, you have to use your words basically to create that experience for the crowd as well. But yeah, maybe
I don't know.
Yeah, something interesting to think about.
Yeah,
there
I know.
Get onto your other half about that. He'll break it down with his critical thinking.
Yeah. Oh Jesus. Okay, but wait. Can I? You only have 15 minutes left before you have to go?
Yeah. Thereabouts. I should be okay.
Okay, great.
It's my sister came over to mind my daughter.
Oh, she's great. I love this.
Yeah.
Are you able to talk about how you met your girlfriend?
Yes, of course.
Because you met in real life, right?
We met in real life. Yeah. No apps. We met in London. We both lived in London, and we were talking about this again the other day. I'll try to keep it short. She worked in a pizza place that was owned by some friends of mine. The manager in the pizza place had a crush on me, and the friends of mine were kind of going, "Go on, Steve, I want you to hook up there." And I was like, "No, I'm not going to hook up, but I'm not into her," and blah blah. I feel bad, so they kind of coerced me. Got drunk one night, and I had sex with the manager of the place. But then I was quite adamant. I was like, look, this was great fun, but like nothing's happened. Nothing's going to come of this. She was like, yeah, that's cool. Fine, blah, blah, whatever. Fast forward like 4 months, I'd say, later. And I maintained a good friendship with her because I thought that was important and not to be disrespectful. So I would call into the pizza place the odd time to see how she was doing. Aww. I just started stand-up at the time. And then one day I walk in and there was this Latina girl walking around with an amazing ass. And I said to the girl, the manager, I said, see that girl over there? I would marry her. I know I would. And she was like, oh, she's new here. She's crazy. I'll stay away from her. Anyway, I talked her into giving me the girl's number, which is my now girlfriend. Inez, but they called her Maria at the time because her name is Maria Inez, so they just called her Maria. So I had Maria, I saved Maria's number on my phone. I text her, asked her out on a date, and she was very kind of like, yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I managed, I do remember we were both working in restaurants at the time. It was 2 weeks until I was going to get to meet her. And then within that 2-week period, I got a text back off Maria saying, I don't know what is happening between you and Kate, which is the manager, but I'm not going out with you. And I text Kate going, I shouldn't name her, but hey.
Yeah, she doesn't listen to this.
I said to her, I said, what did you say to Maria? And she was like, nothing. And we had a big argument about it because also bear in mind, like, Kate has gone off and she's sleeping with loads of other dudes. I'm not, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but she's totally cock blocking me here. Anyway, the date doesn't happen. A year later, I go in because this pizza company has opened a new place, but it's closer to my place of work. I've just started stand-up. I go in after dying on my ass in some set. I sit at the bar. This Latina girl, Maria, comes up to serve me, and she says, hello, sir, have you been here before? And I said, yes, hello. You know, kind of, yes, it's me. Didn't remember me at all. So I started chatting her up again, and then I left that evening kind of panicking, going, I hope I still have her number. Flicking through my phone, found her number, text her, and she only remembered me then because the stream of messages came up. And I asked her, what did Kate say to you? And she was like, no, she didn't say anything to me. She told everybody else in the restaurant that you and her were going out.
This is like another thing. People need to stop saying they're going out when they're not going out.
But it's also like, how are we even going out? She's sleeping with other people and she's telling people that me and her are going out. Anyway,
Jesus.
She anyway, Maria Inez didn't give a shit, and I asked her out again and she said yeah, and then 7 months later we were pregnant.
That should be the title of your show. 7 months later we were pregnant.
7 months later we were pregnant, yeah. But I'll never forget one of the first times that it might be the same in New York, but when everyone's in London, we're basically all immigrants and nobody has families. So for Easter, I was like, I'll cook a big roast for everybody and get loads of our friends around. Some from your Portuguese side. I'll get some of the Irish guys over. And it was the first time I'd seen Inez drinking, and she only had a couple of glasses of wine. But I realized that her volume goes up straight away and she starts talking quite aggressively. Yeah. And after the meal, everybody's been so complimentary to me, going, oh, that's such a lovely meal, Stephen. Thank you so much. And tell us, how did you and Inez meet? She stands up and like roaring and says like, Stephen was fucking my manager in work. And I was like, it was one time. And blah, blah.
I love that.
I'll never forget the Portuguese guys crying with laughter and the Irish guys taking a sip and going, Jesus, I think it's time we better leave.
Yeah, the poor Irish lads. So uncomfortable. Wait, so 7 months, then you found out you were pregnant. That's jeez, great though, because you have a beautiful daughter. But was it like, especially being immigrants and then being in a different country and just being like, oh, was it like, were you guys scared?
Yeah, and we were. Yeah, and I mean, we just rolled with it because at the time she had just finished her course in naturopathic nutrition. She got a job in a real fancy pharmacy that she was going to get some experience there and then move on into other work. I was a waiter and trying to make it out in comedy. And we were like literally, I think 7 months into the pregnancy, and we were still just going to have the baby in London and stay there. But like, I don't think we could have survived really. I mean, maybe we could have. I don't know. But it was just last minute that my acting agent in Ireland said they would represent me for comedy as well, but you have to move back to Ireland. And we went to Portugal for my daughter to be born there, and then we moved back to Ireland. So that was literally, I think, 7 months into the pregnancy, that very last minute that we decided that we would move to Ireland. And Ireland works better because my family are very close by. We got lots of help here. More of a community, but London, would have been brutal. Maybe wouldn't have lasted long at all. I don't know. But yeah, it was scary. But it's like from living in New York as well, because London is not dissimilar in that there's such busy cities that you just keep going. You tend not to breathe and give yourself a moment to kind of, what I do with my life. You just get caught up in in how the city moves, and you're just like, and you just keep going.
It's so true, because it's like the pandemic was like the first time where, so I've been in New York nearly 6 years, like 6 in November, but where I was just like, oh, I was just, like you said, just go, not even thinking about things, not even thinking about your next move, just like going with whatever, as if you're being pushed the whole time. And then years have gone by, I haven't even noticed it.
Yeah, I'll never forget the description of London to me was a guy from New Zealand. He said, London is like you're in a white water raft going down this crazy river, and you spin out and you go under the water and you roll and roll and roll and roll down the river, and then you get up and it's 8 years later.
8 years later. Oh, that's so true. And I think in the places like London and New York, where in real life is harder as well, dating, because you're settling down is like 10 years later than the rest of the world, because we're still I'm nearly 30, but in my head I'm still 24. You know, it's like it's like these, you never really grew up in these places. And people go to those cities to get what they want, and then they leave unless you're completely minted. But like London, I remember after being a couple of years in London, the chat was from a lot of people of moving to Bristol or moving to, going somewhere where, okay, I've moved up somewhat on the ladder, now I need to get out of this fucking rat race kind of a thing, absolutely.
So that conversation does happen a lot. And very few people wanted to have families and stay in London. A lot of people, although a couple of my friends did, but it was like, oh, if there's a baby on the way, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, how the fuck would you bring a baby there? I nearly had a panic attack going down the tube or whatever it's called. It was like down, I felt like I was gone as if what I imagine in one of the world wars, I don't know, when they're like underground.
It's only one or two, Katie.
Well, it could be either, I'm not sure. But like it's all the way down there. You're like, my ears were popping going down. I had no reception. I didn't know what way to go. I couldn't figure out what state. I was like having a panic attack. No way would I have a baby in a city like that. I'd be more likely to
well, you're not getting on the tube with a buggy anyway, that's for sure.
See, how would you even get around? No, fuck that.
It would just be buses and overground, but it would but just like because your quality, when I moved to London, I went and lived in a warehouse, so you kind of accept a much lower quality of life straight away that you don't realize.
That is
you don't
so
realize
true.
till you leave.
I was living in like what was called a room, but it was not a room. It was literally like a sectioned off part of a sitting room. So I was just like, only my bed fit in it, and my door didn't close properly. And the door was made of windows, so to stop that, they'd stuck up black paper. Oh, it's really sad.
Jesus. Yeah.
I'm really
but then it's like I'm in New York.
Yeah. Well, now I'm fine because I'm in a 2-bed, living the dream.
Woo!
Ooh, got a roof.
Are you in the city?
No, Astoria.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. It's like where all the people who, I guess, were going to Bristol, like they go to Astoria. It's still close to the city, but it feels like it's out of New York.
Oh,
it
right.
feels like it's all like people with suits on the train coming home after their 9-to-5 job. They just want to be quiet. They're just very adults. It feels like adults.
How long does it take to get into the city then from there?
It depends on where you're going. If I'm going to work, which is on the Upper East Side, it's only 30 minutes. To go into like Midtown is only like 15, 20.
Oh, right,
and if you're going downtown, it's like an hour. But it's like, it is handy. But it's just, it feels, because there's only one train out there, or two maybe at tops, but it just feels out of the way. I love it.
Oh, that's cool.
I should let you go. Before you go, though, do you have any advice for people who want to meet up with people in real life after the pandemic?
I would say my biggest regrets in meeting people in real life is that I didn't make things clear earlier.
Yeah.
And like there was one girl I've just remembered now that she was in Simon's Cafe in Dublin.
No.
It's like at the end of Georgia Street Arcade. It's like a really old school cafe where they still wash the dishes by hand. But there was a Spanish girl in there years ago. I used to go and write in my notebook every day, and she was gorgeous, but she was always flirt with me all the time. and I just left it too long to ask her out.
Yeah.
I made too much of a thing in my head that every day I would go in, I'd get way more nervous. And it took me months, and then I was finally there with somebody else, a bloke, and I was like, I'll casually ask her out. And I was like, oh, we're going to this play or whatever, would you like to come? And she's like, she was cleaning another table at the other side of the room. She's like, oh, no, I have a boyfriend. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. And but I had built... She was like, no. And she was emailing me a little bit as well, I remember. And I was like, there must be something here. But my lesson from that was like, if I had just said it earlier on, you're just better off getting it out there and getting shot down earlier and then move on.
No,
do you know what I mean?
That's great advice. I completely agree with that advice.
Yeah.
Because
it's just like, if you get shot down, you get shot down, but you're better off putting it out there. And because if some might say it's a bit too forward or whatever, and maybe it is sometimes, you got to read it. But if you just put it out there, then just let it go. Move on from it. Don't be holding on to that shit.
I completely agree with you as well. And then the only thing is where people are like, oh, I don't want to scare the woman or whatever, or don't want to, ruin it or whatever. You're only going to ruin it if you keep asking afterwards. That's when women complain about it. It's just because a guy will have asked and we'll have said no, and they'll keep asking. But if you're just like, you just ask and you're cool with and then you could be friends.
You got to do what I did. You got to ask. Wait a year and then ask again.
Yeah, that's grand. A year in space is grand. It's when they're like, but why? Why not? And you're like, oh, Jesus, don't make me tell you you're ugly.
Yeah. I think you're better off just putting out there. And I think that girl who did ask me out that time is a great example as well. But like, she gave me shit. Well, I probably wouldn't have gone on a date with her, but just because she said you'd be a fool not to call me, then I'm like, I fucking will call you.
Yeah, who should you fucking tell? Don't tell me what not to do. Or wait, that made no sense. But you know what I mean.
Totally. Don't tell me who I will and will not call. Yeah. Thank you very much.
No, that's great. And just being confident. The thing is, like, just accept rejection. Like, I've been rejected, and I was rejected by a guy, and we became friends afterwards. And I've rejected guys, and they've stayed friends with me afterwards. And I've met guys online or in real life, and it just didn't work out. And one guy, he's a comic actually. We did hook up a bunch, and then it just didn't work out because at the time I was dealing with a lot of Catholic guilt. This is when I was figuring out all stuff about myself, and I was like very we have to keep it quiet, like you're a comic and stuff. But when I was like, oh, I don't want to keep having sex if we're not going to end up in a relationship. And he was like, oh, well, I don't want a relationship or whatever. And we actually became really good friends from it. And we've never hooked up again. And we're still friends. He'd still check in on me. And I think that's lovely. I think
that's great.
And like,
and I do admire, like, I'm sure somebody might email in now and go, well, that's not fucking true. But I am happy with the fact that I definitely, like in my dating years, I didn't actually date a lot, but I slept with a lot of women. But I never used to do the whole thing. I would never cross over, I would kind of, but I would also maintain a good relationship with them afterwards. So like people I made coffee for example, I've slept with some customers, but like they still come into coffee the next day and we still carry on the same way, and it was all fine, and it was like, yeah, we had sex, great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we move on, and then they come in with their boyfriends, and then, I think that's healthy, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I love that. I remember like when I was younger, some guy I was dating was like, oh, I don't want to know if you've or if you've slept with anyone else at work or something. But I remember thinking, oh, well, they're in the past. You don't need to worry about them. You can worry about the guys I haven't slept with.
You've got an opportunity in front of you, dickhead. Yeah.
But even just like, there's no point getting jealous of someone I've already been with because it hasn't worked out. There's like, it's the people who I haven't slept with, they're more of a threat because.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah,
you want to be watching out for those guys, not the past.
So that's great. Thanks for coming on. I loved this.
No, I've had a great time. Yeah. It's good. It's good stuff to talk about, and I wish you the best with your architect.
Oh yeah, he's lovely. But he like that. I've always said if it didn't work out with us, we'll stay friends. But I'm just at the point where I'm like, you just don't know. The guy I was seeing last year, I was like, I thought I was like in love with him after like 3 weeks, and then hit 4 months, and I was like, I never want to see this guy again. So I'm just like, you just don't know. Just go slow and
you never know.
See what happens.
You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Another couple of months, you might have a baby on the way. Anyway.
Yeah, you'll see me back in Ireland. I'd be like, can you hook me up with that agency?
Yeah, exactly. It's a great excuse. I've got a baby on the way. You got to look after me, guys.
Yeah, they do follow me on Instagram, so you never know. Fingers crossed.
You never
if
know.
I ever
Exactly,
come back, I'll be like, you follow me.
Do you? And I'm pregnant.
Yeah, come on, it's great material. I'll be the Irish Ali Wong.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, right. Oh, I love Ireland.
That's a great idea.
This has been great. Okay, wait. Plug yourself and your podcast and everything.
For those of you who are listening who have made it to the end of this podcast, thank you very much. And you can listen to Hello Steve-O podcast. It's out every week. We did episode 70 last week, and we had a great conversation with a guy called Gavin Byrne, who is an ultra runner. So I've gotten into ultra running over the course of lockdown. This guy runs 200-kilometer long races like crazy shit. He's the record holder for the Wicklow Round. We had Eman Edema was on a couple of weeks ago, a great comedian who's black Irish, and he talked about Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd stuff, and it was great, and he's very funny. So yeah, check out Hello Steve-O podcast, and you can follow me on Instagram and all the social medias. It's just at Hello Steve-O.
Great, thank you.